As we take a look first at some of the big names, Michael, Lamar Jackson is the guy as we prepare for this franchise tag portion of the offseason. The quarterback for Baltimore who could get it would either be $32.5 million on the non-exclusive tag. You're expected to be in that $45 million or so range on the exclusive tag. What are you doing if you're Baltimore here with Lamar Jackson?
Well, let's set the framework, right? So the difference between the exclusive and the non-exclusive is the non-exclusive, nobody can talk to him. The exclusive people can talk to them, but they have to pay compensation. There's a determined value. I think it's a 1 and a 3, if I'm not mistaken. So there's already determined value in that. The risk you run by not letting people talk to, if you put the higher price tag on them, then you basically you're saying we're not getting rid of you, we're not trading you, but you could trade them. But you're also at a higher price. If you put the non-exclusive one on there, you say you're open to a trade. Now you have to settle for what the compensation is. There lies the difference. So if you're the Baltimore Ravens, and let's say the compensation, I think it's a 1 and a 3. If it's a 1 and a 3, right, it's a long way from R.C. Owens, one of the first players ever in the history of the NFL to sign a deal with another team. From the 49ers. So, I mean, this is a long way from that. I think the commissioner had the right back then to award the picks. I think he gave away like a second round or something, and nobody wanted to mess with it anymore. But say they decide to go non-exclusive, and it's a 1 and a 3. Now you're saying you've set the market knowing that Russell Wilson's out there, knowing that Deshaun Watson's out there, that you're getting way less value. If you go the exclusive, you're paying a lot more money, but you control his rights. So for me, with Lamar, I think I control his rights. I think I put the exclusive tag on him. I know it's more money. I know it's a huge cap number. Huge cap number, right? But I think you've got to control the value of the player because he's worth more than a 1 and a 3.
He's a guy who's in a position and going into last year before his injury was looking at a full extension 5-year type deal. So you compare this, and put it side by side, what you're getting by doing the tag. I mean, it seems like an obvious choice. And as much as the general media narrative, Michael, over this offseason has been, all right, Lamar Jackson, he really, he screwed the pooch for himself. He's not going to get a deal. And now what does Baltimore do? Don't you, if you take a step back, though, if you're Baltimore, don't you look at it and say, this is still a premier quarterback in the NFL. We have a chance to still let him prove his worth and go from there on a 1-year franchise tag type situation.
Well, but, I mean, look, here's the reality. When you don't extend him and you get into what happened last year and you're at the end of the year and he's not healthy, not rehab, whatever was going on there at the end of the year, he didn't get back on the field. When he limped off in the game, we never saw him again. And so, what went into that? He went to Cincinnati one weekend, then he didn't go back the next weekend. So, what's going on here? I think there's some underlying factors. I think knowing Baltimore will be deliberate. Baltimore will step back and say, if anybody wants to offer us, they can have him. Now, why wouldn't they put the non-exclusive tag on? Because he's worth more than a 1 and a 3. So the question is, would you pay $13 million a year, Ben, $13 million for an extra first-round pick? Because that's really what you're saying when you put the non-exclusive on it. You're saying we should get 2 number 1s and 2 number 2s. Would you pay $13 million for that? When the Cleveland Browns traded for Brock Osweiler, they paid a second. They got a second. Houston, they paid basically a second, right? They got a second-round pick to do it. That was worth what? And that was $15 million.
Yeah. I'm just one to believe where, as much as it was a really, really ugly ending to the season, and you have Jackson not even on the sideline, and rumors starting to fly, when you step back and you let this offseason process play out, you sit here and you say, what are we better off with if we're Baltimore? Are we at least better off with a rehabbed and a healthy Lamar Jackson, or are we going to start over at the quarterback position and go from there? I just have to think, given the makeup of the team for Baltimore, who made strides in the back end with the defense second half of the year after being miserable at the start, first 6 weeks or so, I would say you probably look at it from the perspective of, all right, let's just let bygones be bygones. I know it was an ugly situation behind the scenes at the end of the year, but let's give Jackson a shot here. We aren't going to pay a ton relative to what we thought we would have to pay going into last season, and let's just go from there. That's how I would look at it from Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think to me that works. It's, but the players, it's hard. Now, all that money's guaranteed. The core issue of Lamar isn't average per year. It's guaranteed money. And so now you're guaranteeing $45 million. And if Lamar is sitting there back saying, if they don't come to me with a deal, that $45 million cap number is going to be really hard on their cap. It's going to be very challenging. How do they handle that? How do they get around it? It's going to be a tough equation to solve because you're eating $45 million, and how do you sign other players that are on your team? How do you bring them back? How do you handle that? I think
it's tough.
That bogs you down. I mean, you want to be able to use the first couple years of a guy whose cap. You want to be able to use that on lowering his number. But and you probably feel like Lamar might be in the $40 million range, but. You got Ronnie Stanley's on their cap he's at $23 million. Marlon Humphrey's on their cap for $19 million. Now, they can convert their Paragraph 5s to signing bonus and get their cap number down, but, they could cut Kevin Zeitler. They'd pick up money. Calais Campbell says he's coming back. He's a high cap number. I mean, they have to figure out how to put this in, and they're going to have to do it. It's going to be very challenging because they don't really have a lot of cap room to mess with.
It's like, on the surface, Baltimore, technically they're ninth in cap room, available, but that's also not all those names you just
counting
said.
Your quarterback.
Right. As soon as that happens and Lamar Jackson is a big piece to flip, all of a sudden the equation becomes different. How about the New York Giants, who have a very interesting offseason ahead of them, where you have Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, a quarterback, running back, who are each in a potential to be tagged? How would you approach starting with the quarterback, Daniel Jones, and then going to Barkley there if you're the Giants front office?
I wouldn't tag Jones. I'd let the market declare his value. I'd call his bluff. He's not leaving. He's not going to. He's not going to leave. He's in a good situation. And so who's paying him $40 million? If somebody wants to pay him $40 million, God bless, go ahead. I'll find somebody else. I mean, I'll sign Cooper Rush and get the same thing out of him for $10 million. I mean, and then the other thing about Daniel Jones, I got to run him. I mean, he's got to run in the game. So I'm not tagging Daniel Jones. I would tag Barkley, the non-exclusive, at $10 million. And basically say 1 year.
Saquon Barkley will show his number in a second. Yeah, so that the non-exclusive then on the Barkley, you're getting that. It's about $10 million tag, and for a guy who excelled under Brian Daboll a season ago, has always fought through injuries. I think that's probably the big question, right? People are going to ask on Barkley, but it's only a 1 year thing, so it makes it a little more palatable, right?
Right. I mean, unless I get the deal that I want for 4, I'm only signing for 1. So ring up that register, Brian.
Ring it up.
It's like, that's it. It's not like you can't. I said this on the podcast. Not everybody can eat dinner. Not everybody's going to go through the buffet. You got to make some hard decisions. If Daniel Jones goes out there and someone wants to pay him $45 million a year, God bless, go do it. I'll find another answer at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not willing to call the bluff, you're going to get killed.
Isn't the bigger point on Jones too that? For as much as it was a very good first season under Brian Daboll as head coach, had his best year as a quarterback, don't you more look at the system of Daboll and say, all right, he's the guy clearly has the ability to take a middling, mediocre to slightly below average quarterback and make him one of the better ones, one of the top 12 guys with the system. It's more system, right, as opposed to player. As much as Jones is a good two-way guy with the ability to run the ball, right? That's how I look at it.
No doubt. I look at it that way too, and that's why you call the bluff. You say, hey, go ahead. What are we doing?
Yeah. All right.
You want to go somewhere else? Go somewhere else. What happened? Joe Flacco, they didn't call the bluff. They signed him. It hurt them. Dak Prescott, they didn't call the bluff. Signed him. They're not great. Everybody said you had to sign up both those guys, except for Bill Berman, who's up on my board. He said you didn't have to. Everybody said it.
We're ringing up the register, though. A great idea from Brian Ortegas. We're tagging Lamar Jackson, which I am, based on everything we're reading, sounds like will happen. Tagging Saquon Barkley, letting Daniel Jones walk.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.